great memories of close friends, you know, and the fact that we all lived near each other. You know, we could play together after school, and then our cousins, my uncle, Chet DiGiulio, lived on the corner of Niles Boulevard and D Street. So they weren't that far from us. And my mother always welcomed the kids over to the house. So, and then when our house was built, there was just empty field. So classmates but mostly cousins, we'd get together so much and play, and have a newspaper, you know, in the neighborhood and go around and do the interviewing. And then we put on shows at my aunt's house. Now my aunt lived right next door to her brother, my uncle. And she had,
what was her name? Which one
Teresa.
was this?
That would be Teresa Di Giulio,
okay.
But she married and became Teresa Uhays.
Okay, and she also lived in Niles.
Oh yes, yeah. Yes,
and where was she?
She lived in Alameda for a while because she married someone from that area, but then she came back to Niles. Yeah.
Okay, so you said cousins.
Yes.
Cousins went around. Go ahead.
And then she had a patio area, which was a cemented area, and we would put on shows. I'll never forget those shows. And then we'd write the script and everything, you know, and do everything. And in the neighborhood, we'd go around and then invite people, put the chairs out on the lawn, and that was so much fun. Just simple, you know, wonderful playtime activities. But at Niles School, I'll never forget Miss Shire. She was our music teacher. And I say this because of the fact I'm involved with a music program now, but I know she must have had an influence too. But we had, you know, we had a band, we had choir, we had so much. We were very enriched there. And to think today, music is not in every school. And even at Niles, that's why I started this nonprofit, which maybe we could talk about it sometime.
Yeah, that's good.
Because, you know, I'm sure that's why I was so determined to keep music in the schools, because it is so important for children. I mean, for all of us, because of what it does in our brain and fills our heart. So we just had a very rich, I think, upbringing. Family was close. Always gathering on Sundays, usually either at my grandmother's. My grandmother was an amazing lady. She lived to be 96, Egizia. And she not only had a house in Niles, she eventually had another house in Niles, and then she had a house in Santa Cruz, and she would go back and forth, you know, and drive herself even through the mountains. So she was a remarkable lady, and so family gatherings were always a part of our upbringing, and wonderful school.
How about the town and activities besides with the family? I mean, would you go on picnics? Did you go to Niles Canyon? What was in the town that you went to?
I remember Sletton's department store where we would go shopping, and I remember the market. And oh gosh. We would go, yeah, because we would go with my mom. My mom didn't drive, so we would walk, you know, to the town, or my dad would drop us off or something. But I remember SNA days where they, you know, it would be a big event. It was in the summer. Maybe, I'm not sure if that led to the flea markets. I'm not sure when the flea markets are started.
So when was the first SNA days? In the 50s or 60s, you think?
Let's see, my uncle, how old was my brother? My brother must have been maybe 7 or 8 or 9, so that would have been 1948 or 49, maybe, because I remember seeing him in his little cowboy outfit, and he would be with my uncle, the one who brought my parents together, and all the men would grow beards. And my dad grew a beard, my uncle grew his beard, and then they'd wear their cowboy hats, and there would be parade. And,
oh, how great.
So SNA, I'm sure it celebrated. The fact that it was called SNA Days must have been connected with the museum, you know, with the history of Hollywood and all. Oh, my dad used to run the movies in the movie theater for when Charlie Chaplin and Ben Turpin, and so he actually met these people.
Oh, how
and you know, because he
right.
would run the film, And I think he was 13 when he did that, I think. So that would have been 1922, would that maybe be right? And the homes that are on 2nd Street, okay, starting at G on 2nd, going toward H. Wait, is that right? No, going toward F, So that block on 2nd Street from G to F, F to G, those little homes, those little houses where the movie stars used to rent or stay there when they were making the films, yeah.
Right.
And the Belvoir Hotel was really popular for even the San Francisco people coming to the town. But my dad, yeah, he used to tell me he's seen Ben Turpin and Charlie Chaplin, but the fact that he was running the movies I thought was fun.
Yes.
And, up there.
So, you went to Sletton's department store. Is that where you did your shopping, or did you go other places
When
too?
we were younger then, but then we would go to Hayward. It was the Hayward Strip there, Goldman's, I remember.
Right.
Was a store we used to go to. So Hayward would have been the other. We were very active in our church, Corpus Christi Church, which is still at the end of town here on 2nd Street. We were very much involved there. I was in the choir, and then we would be involved in fashion shows and different things. And I'm still involved there. Now I lead the choir at our church.
Great.
And I've started a little children's choir there too. So the church was a real focal point for the community then. Lots of people in the church. Lots of cultures too. The Portuguese, the Italians, of course the English speaking, but
How about Mexican people? Were there a lot of Mexican people there?
Yes, there were a lot, yes. In fact, my dad, a lot of them worked for my dad. I remember a man named Tino. He was so...
What was his name?
His name was Tino, and his last name, oh gosh, isn't that terrible? But he's in one of those pictures. He was very close to my dad, really sweet man. So yes, but they were church-going. I mean, the churches were filled as compared to today, where I have quite as many. But there was a lot of activities at the church that took up a lot of our time too. There were mostly churches and bars. There really were. My grandmother's house was a focal point. Then she bought the house, which unfortunately we just sold, F and Niles Boulevard. She lived there for many years, and we would go there quite often. She took in boarders in that house on Vallejo Street, where my dad was born. She was such a hard-working woman and smart. So she took in boarders and cooked for them and had her children and earned her money, and then decided to buy land in Niles, buy property. So she did buy, of course, her house there eventually. But there was the building that she built for the American Garage, and then where Mikey's Market is, she purchased that land and built that market, which wasn't Mikey's in the original. I think it was Freeman's maybe was the first, and the Rebellos had that market, and another person I can't quite remember, but so she owned that parking lot, that F Street parking lot, the market land, the Salvador Apartments, they're still there. And I think she called it after her husband.
Salvador.
Salvatore was his name. And so my mother and my aunts, her daughter, and Chet's wife would often help with the cleaning of the apartments, and were involved in helping in any way. As my grandmother got older, of course, she couldn't do as much. My Aunt Teresa was very much involved with those purchases, with helping. And then my Aunt Teresa, actually the sister, did go with them when they moved to Centerville, which was hard, I know, to make that adjustment.
She went with them in what way?
They had DiGiulio Pontiac expanded in the Centerville area, and so it was located on Dusterberry and Peralta.
Right.
And so my aunt, who worked in the Niles location there as a clerical work. You know, she was in the office. She went over to Centerville too, and then that's my brother. My brother started out at Niles when my dad, you know, he'd help in the repair thing, mechanics, and then my dad taught him various things. So he eventually got into the sales, and he was very good at that. And then he too went over. So Chet had a son, Arlene's brother, Richard. So Richard was involved in the business. My brother, Ron, was involved in the business. Cousin, Robert Leal, Bob Leal, this would have been Teresa's son.
So Teresa married Leal?
Well, first, her first marriage, and then that husband died. She was married to a Leal, and so Robert Leal is a Leal.
Now, let me catch.
Yeah.
Robert Leal, is he from the Niles area also?
No,
or?
he's actually in Centerville now. They live in Glenmore Gardens near Arlene. Teresa had 2 boys and 1 girl. And Sharon, the girl, lives in Fremont. She's in the Mission area. Robert, her brother, lives in Glenmore Gardens. The older brother passed away, Ed Leal. Yeah.
And all of those were Leals, those 3 children?
Sharon wasn't. The
Okay.
2 boys were, because Teresa married again, and his last name was Uhays, and so that's why Sharon was Sharon Uhays. So it's her half brother. Those are her half brothers.
Okay.
And he was from Alameda. That's why Teresa went to Alameda, because Teresa was in Niles all this time. My Aunt Teresa was, what did they call it? She was queen or something. There must have been some pageant or something, and she was Niles. She was
the Niles queen for some kind of parade or something.
She was a pretty woman. Yeah, she was a beautiful woman, and she could play piano. All natural, all by ear, and I think that she inspired me. I think she inspired me for that. Although my dad loved to sing, but he didn't play. But he played one song on the piano. I think it's the Skater's Waltz or something. He could play. I went to Washington because Logan wasn't built yet. So I did go 1 year at Washington, freshman, and then transferred over to Logan because Logan was not in there was no New Haven school district then. So I graduated from Logan, James Logan.
Oh,
and
so everyone in Niles went to Logan then?
That's right. That's right.
Oh, wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Because it switched back again then, maybe.
Right, I don't know when that was. I'm not sure.
Okay, so I guess did you take a bus to Logan, or did they have?
There was no bus, but I think, you know, probably my dad drove us, but let's see, I would have been a sophomore, and then I got my license. As soon as I got my license, of course I wanted a car, and my dad, I'll never forget, 51 Chevy.
A Chevy?
51 Chevy.
Pontiac garage?
Yeah, I know. Still General Motors. As long as it was General Motors, we were okay.
Right.
And I remember I used to put these 2 white stuffed dogs in the back window, and it was a stick shift. My dad taught me how to drive a stick shift on one of the tow trucks. So, you know, with the great big thing.
Right.
But I loved learning how to drive a stick. I wanted to, and that's what that car was. So then from there he elevated me to a 50, I think it was a 55 Pontiac.
Ah, there you go.
And then I had a, what was that called? No. I almost had it. Tempest? I think it was Tempest. You know. So then pretty much, although one time I had a Pacer, that was an American Motors, a bright yellow Pacer, but it was so much fun. One time he had this 1928 Pontiac is in my sister's shed. My sister married a farmer in Stockton, and so in their shed is the 1928 Pontiac.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, and we should do something with it. But he let me drive it to high school when I was a song girl, and I think I was in my senior year. And so it also had the big stick, but you know, you walk in, it's like you're in a house, you know. And I took all the song girls in it, and we had more fun in it.
How fun.
So he was always generous with, you know, with the transportation vehicles that I could use.
That's great.
And my brother too. My brother let me take his brand new Grand Prix when I was a senior for that senior week. I'll never forget this. And you know, everybody was in the car and talking. A beautiful white Grand Prix. My brother just got it, and I was senior. Yes, and I took it to school, and we were probably going to a game or something, and laughing and everything. And I had a purse on this. I could see that purse today. It was like a basket woven purse, big, on the front seat, and it started to fall. And you know, I knew that pretty soon I had to stop pretty soon, but it fell. And this is a lesson for everybody. And I reached down just to grab it, and there was the car stopped in front of me. And I stopped. You know, the Grand Prix, they had like a nose.
Stuck out, right?
It was like this.
Oh, no.
I called my brother and I said, Ronnie, I think I dented. I said, dented.
Just a little.
The front of your car. Oh, he was sick. Oh, he came in that. But he was so good. He said, oh, it's okay. You know, it's okay. Oh, I'll never forget that. Forgive me wherever you are. But it was a vivid memory. I could see that car and I could just see that transformation. Oh, my gosh. But never look away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, any other things about Niles? And actually, if you want to open it up to Fremont, because there was so much change in this time. Niles is a town. How did it change?
You know, just trying to think. I think just different people coming. You know, people with new ideas. I think it's always. As much as we want to retain, we do, tradition and the culture and everything, you know, for posterity, I think there's always been a little curious or a little, what are the words, desire to see what else we can do here. That's what I love about the town, is that there's this respect for the history, and then the willingness to see what else we can do, you know, but you build on it. You don't, you know, eliminate it, you know. I got involved, you know, I was going to college and I became a teacher. Then I did move out of Niles a little bit. When I was teaching, I taught at Hayward High School. And I did live with another teacher friend of mine. She had an apartment, and then she said, oh, Carol, you want to come and join me? So I did, and that was about 5 or 6 years, I guess. Then I met my husband. And then he was from the Valley. He's from Tracy, but he was working in Stockton. So when we got married here, Corpus Christi Church.
And your husband's name?
Actually, his full name is Sergio Giacomo Zilli, so he's Italian as well.
Okay.
And he goes by Serge. And he was from Tracy, so he really loved this town too, because of Tracy being smaller then, you know, and his mom and dad had a grocery store, and you know, they were immigrants from Italy. They actually were from Italy, and he was first generation. And so when we married, he was still working in Stockton, so for 6 months we lived in Stockton. And then he learned of the job in Oakland with Safeway, at their corporate offices. He's a civil engineer. And he took that job and was commuting, you know, getting up at 4:30 in the morning. And I said, why don't we go look at Niles again? You know, you'd be that much closer. So thanks to my brother, who knew the realtor, Joe Saba, I think he's passed away. This house is in Rancho Arroyo, where the nursery was. It wasn't even on the market yet. And so we drove by, went in, take a look at it, and oh, I really wanted it. And of course, it's only 5 or 6 blocks from where I grew up. And my mom was still alive, my mom and dad. So we got it and came back to Niles. And so in 1976, we have been in that house. And we just celebrated our 41st, I think, anniversary. But it was so great to be so close to my mom. And guess who lives in that house now, where I grew up? Our daughter.
Oh, how wonderful.
So our daughter is now established there with her family. She has 2 children. I'm so happy about that, because it's right so close by, and she loves the town too. Yeah. You know, and they love to go up and push the baby in the stroller, And with the development, and you said about the development, you know, we always wanted a plaza. I remember we wanted something, and we wanted to eliminate a few bars, and we did always say, you know, and of course, being Catholic at the Catholic Church, I thought, we don't need that many churches. They can all come to ours. So, you know, people were wanting more things, and we always said, oh, gee, it'd be great to have an ice cream parlor. I remember that. We have an ice cream parlor now. You know?
We do.
And just more restaurants and a place for people to gather, and look at that. So I think it was on the mind of people a lot, but to make it happen, yeah, you do need a lot of hard work and people committed. And so I think when new people came, see, maybe there were more of those types of people that could do it and make it happen, you
Right.
know. But everybody was for that. I mean, anyone who's elderly here and living looks at this, and I know they think it's wonderful. I don't think they think, oh, what's happening to our town, you know.
Right.
So,
Because the change has been subtle.
yeah.